All of the factors that we looked at so far were dependent upon density. The more dense the population, the greater those factors influence the population. There are some factors that are density independent. The density independent limiting factors affect all populations regardless of the population size and density. Some examples are environmental change, like unusual weather, hurricanes, droughts, or floods, and natural disasters, such as wildfires. Those are density-independent limiting factors. Think about it. A wildfire is going to affect a population that is small and spread out just as much as it's going to affect a very dense population, because it's going to affect all the organisms that are in the area that is affected by those wildfires. In response to such factors, the population may crash. After the crash, the population may build up again quickly, or it may stay low for some time. A population crash, an example of that is what we saw with the wolves that were affected by that CPV, that virus. Their population suddenly decreased. Now that was a density-dependent factor, but density-independent factors can also cause these crashes. Things like hurricanes, droughts, floods, wildfires. Those can have a devastating effect on a community and the populations within that community. Events such as storms can nearly extinguish local populations of some species. For example, thrips, aphids, and other leaf-eating insects can be washed out by a heavy rainstorm. Waves whipped up by hurricanes can devastate shallow coral reefs. Extremes of cold or hot weather also can take their toll, no matter how sparse or dense a population is. More prolonged environmental changes, such as severe drought, can devastate populations. These kinds of environmental changes can thus affect ecosystem stability. The photo here is showing drought conditions in Kern Valley Wildlife Refuge here in California. Why is drought a density-independent factor? Well, because it affects populations no matter how large or small they are, or no matter how crowded or dispersed they are. If there's no water, then there's no water. Make some inferences for yourself about the impact of the drought on a variety of populations in this ecosystem. Plants and animals, you can even think about bacteria or fungi. For example, a population of water plants might become overcrowded as a result of a decrease in the water level of the river. If the river gets smaller, then there's less room for the same population of plants. Or plants along the riverbank might dry out and die, limiting nesting places for some birds. Sometimes the effects of so-called density-independent factors can vary with population density. On Isle Royale, for example, the moose population grew exponentially for a time after the wolf population crashed. Then a bitterly cold winter with very heavy snowfall covered the plants on which the moose feed, making it difficult for all those moose to move around to find food. Because emigration wasn't possible for this island population, many moose died from starvation. The effect of bad weather on this large, dense population were greater than it would have been on a small population. In a smaller population, there would have been less competition, so individual moose would have had more food available. This situation shows that it is sometimes difficult to say that a limiting factor acts only in a density-independent way. Reconsider the drought scenario. Is it possible for drought to act as a density-independent factor? Well, yeah, a large population might be affected by a drought more than a much smaller population because if there is some water available and there is competition for that water, it's going to be harder for a member of a large population to compete for that water than a member of a small population. If carrying capacity falls low enough, populations can be wiped out, leading to species extinction. The example of the wolves on Isle Royale, when they were cut to a population of 13 with only 3 females, that they came very close to extinction on that island because, of course, you need both males and females to repopulate, and the number of females is probably more important than the number of males.